Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome to the show. Great to have you along. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Allan Tsang. Allan is an amazing negotiation coach, runs a company called 88 Owls. And we're going to be diving into the mysterious or powerful world of negotiation. It's going to be such a fascinating topic. But firstly, Allan, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Ben, for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. And like me, you're traveling the world. So I think you're normally based in Virginia in the States, but where are you today?
Today, I'm in Hong Kong, actually on the Hong Kong island side of it. And when I'm in Hong Kong, I visit my mom and I live in a service apartment like a bachelor, right? It's kind of strange.
Hong Kong is an amazing place. Oh my gosh. I'm from Australia, so I once went on a soccer trip to Hong Kong and we played a match, but it was inside this enormous complex of apartments. So the pitch was just slap bang in the middle of all these high-rise buildings, which is cool. And you had planes landing immediately above. But the entire game, someone somewhere in an apartment had an open window and a whistle, and they just kept blowing the whistle, and we were constantly stopping the game. It's a very disjointed match.
That is hilarious.
The referee kept saying, it wasn't me, but play on. Oh, dear. Yeah, so great to have you here, and I love what you do. So you coach and train clients to be better negotiators. So you work with executives, sales, procurement teams as they hone their respective craft, and negotiation can enhance any conversation from the boardroom to the showrooms and beyond. So I was hoping to talk to you about a couple of topics. One is around how to be a better leader by being a better negotiator. And then secondly, around this concept of profit leak and building a more profitable business, but doing it by avoiding scope creep and building better agreements and so on. So I think they're really important topics for any business, but certainly in the HR world. So maybe I could start, before we get to that, just tell us a little bit about you and 88 Owls. What do you do and how you help your clients?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me and thanks for asking that question. Yeah. I get to do some low-key self-promotion here. Well, I coach and train negotiation. So I do workshops and I train large groups. And then I coach executives that are making large deals, maybe merger acquisitions, or sometimes resolving a dispute with like a large customer, or training enterprise clients on developing a system of negotiation within the procurement or the sales team. And everything is really to drive profits, which we're going to talk a little bit more about how to be a more profitable organization and how to have people that can work with each other and be more collaborative and have a more, this is going to be like a weird buzzword, just more harmonious. And I call it like an equilibrium state. Things are just moving smoothly and everyone just feel that sense of peace. Like I can go in, I can do my job and I can excel at what I do. Yeah.
I love it. I've heard that when people say there are times when they've just loved their job because everyone's rowing in the same direction and things are just humming along. As you say, it's not kumbaya, it's not laziness. It just works and it's just humming along and flying. And
sometimes a little bit of tension is good. You have it like two different departments and they may not get along. This is where sometimes I come in and one department is telling me why they're not cooperating with this other department. And this department feels like the other department is trying to undermine their success and they're not able to make deals or they're never close the deals. And these are huge deals worth millions and they don't understand. And I'm talking to two groups and now I'm acting a little bit like a mediator. And so I listened to both sides. I found out that the customer part of the business is like, why on earth do I want to help them onboard new clients? Because when they onboard a new client, it could be like 3 months of like extra work and they don't get bonuses. The sales teams get bonuses. They just get extra work. So whether they onboard this new client or not, they're still making the same salary. Sometimes the organization's been going on for so long, the sales organization is getting frustrated. And someone has to come out from outside and go, what's really happening here?
So yeah, let's turn to then how to be a better leader by being a better negotiator, because you don't often hear the word negotiator or negotiation in the whole leadership space. Where does that negotiation element fit into being a better leader?
That's a good question. And you're right. Not a lot of people make that connection. Over the last 17 years, organizations come to me for occasionally as we have a team, they're not getting along with another company or one of their large customers, and they're having conflict on a weekly basis. And so what happened to these conflicts, whether it's a problematic customer or a customer leaving the organization, or someone is unhappy and threatening lawsuits, or you have a good customer, but every week the meetings are becoming contentious, they all bubble up to the leader. Mm. Basically, the buck ends to the one who can resolve these disputes, and usually they're in leadership. Just think about someone being stopped by a police officer on the road. Nowadays, the first thing they go is like, I need to talk to your supervisor. People are really good at escalating. When someone doesn't get what they want in the airport, guess what? I want to talk to a manager. So what these organizations come to me for is like, can we teach these conflict resolution skills to the frontline employees? Because the more they can resolve these conflict and disputes, the less they have to bubble up to the leaders, which means that the leaders have more bandwidth to grow and to scale the organization and to solve bigger problems instead of solving the disputes that their employees hopefully could solve by themselves.
Yeah. And with my HR hat on, I'm thinking that you also then need to set the parameters and give them guidelines in which to operate so that they have that room and flexibility to negotiate. Otherwise, they think, I'll just get in trouble for something I've done here. Is that right?
Absolutely. Fear is one of the biggest things that people just go, you know what, I'll let you talk to my boss. And to continue on your question, what are people looking for when they come to me is like, hey, Allan, can you help our senior management or executive team to be better at whether it's conflict resolution or negotiating better deals? We have strategic partnerships that we are forming. How can we negotiate better deals? How can the leaders inspire the team? How can they motivate the team to do more, right? To produce like a better product or be more innovative. And often it's like, how can we build teams? How can we collaborate together better? How can the leaders give and receive feedback from their team? So all those ends up being skills within negotiation, right? How can we say something to the counterparty, get what we want without ruining the relationship?
I'm just thinking, someone sitting here listening to this are thinking, oh, that's probably me Allan's talking about. I'm that leader, whether it's as a business owner or within a large organization, maybe as an HR leader. And I probably could be a better negotiator, which then feeds through to that team. What advice would you have, or is there a framework or something that they could take away to help improve their skills on the negotiation side?
The easy answer is there is no easy answer, because someone who is naturally more aggressive or dominant, I'll have to coach them to be more empathetic, to be able to be a better listener, to use active listening skills. And someone who is maybe more shy and more reserved and more conflict avoidant, I have to kind of help them be more confident. So companies say, I want someone to be more influential, be better at motivating, to be able to resolve conflicts and to be more collaborative and to be able to influence decisions on the counterparty. All this stuff, it's almost like teamwork or working with other people. But what most people fail is the self-work. So if I can come in and teach the skills on how to work with other people, for instance, I can teach them, how do you influence a decision? How do you manage emotions when the conflict is, I guess, is in full-blown scale? People are threatening each other. But if the person I'm coaching hasn't gone through the training to regulate their own emotions, so without learning how to regulate your emotions, learning how to influence a counterparty and change how they feel is just not going to work, because you can't even get there. You can't get to the point where you're trying to help someone calm down because you haven't even calmed down yet.
It's interesting. You said self-change in there, which I think, it's just so important. It's
self-work. So self-work has to come before teamwork. Yeah. But most companies are very eager in teamwork. Can you train my team on teamwork? And I have to kind of get them to slow down a little bit. Let's look at what they have done in terms of self-work first. So that's why I talk about when someone is overly aggressive, to kind of help them to be more empathetic, to be better listeners, to slow down a little bit, to maybe lower the volume and speak more softly, and to nurture a situation before going in full blown and go, this is how we do things. Boom, just do this, right? And someone who is a little bit more soft and more, I guess, empathetic, someone who is less aggressive and more avoidant of conflict. You need that person to be able to step up, be more assertive, and seem confident. Because if you don't seem confident to the counterparty, a lot of times the counterparty will just take advantage of them.
Yeah. That's a tough gig because that's deep-rooted personality stuff going on there. And people talk about even childhood issues feeding through into personalities. So it's hard to say, all right, I want you to just count to 5 before you respond to things and give shallow answers. So how do you get that balance right?
You're right. You've hit it like right on the head. So just knowing how to do something doesn't mean someone can do it. This is where I talk about the trifecta of being a good negotiator. You have to have three things. You have to have the right mindset. You have to have the right skills. And then this is the final thing. You have to have the right habits. If you have the mindset and you have the skills, but you don't have the habits, under pressure, you're not going to be able to perform. So part of the coaching is I have to put them under pressure, which is like a stress inoculation, so that when they're actually in a conflict, their brain and the nervous system go, yeah, I've been here before. It's no big deal. No one's going to die. I feel threatened. I'm being triggered, but no one is physically going to kill me. I can respond properly. Versus the other one is like you have the skills and you have the habits, but you don't have the mindset. Or you have the habits and you have the mindset, but you don't have the skills. These are people who are naturally maybe good at conflict resolution, but they don't have the skills to pass it on and to scale it and to basically clone themselves in an organization. They don't have a system. So you need these three things: the right mindset, the skills, and the habits. For instance, I can teach someone how to resolve disputes, and in the classroom, they can do it. But as soon as they sit in the hot seat, their mindset, which is, avoidant of conflict, kicks in, and then they end up maybe shut down or they just choke. So they go into fight or flight and everything goes out the window. And like you said, they don't even know, they can't even remember, I can count to 5. And even if they do, they are not going to. They don't want to because now it's heated and they have to win the argument. So this psychology of what is, count to 10 or breathe just doesn't really work.
Yeah. What was the term you said? Something inoculation. I like that one.
It's a stress inoculation. It's part of the coaching. It's like there's 2 parts to it. It's spaced repetition and stress inoculation. That's why I feel like 2-day workshops is a waste of time. I break my workshops into groups of 3 or 4 hours. And so instead of 2 days, I'll do like a 3-hour workshop. Then the next week I'll do the follow-up. And then I just repeat what we did last time. And then we put them through some stress inoculation exercises. Then the next week we do the same thing. And so we space it out over like 4 weeks.
That's clever. So you're locking in the change over time.
Yeah, the nervous system, it has to be hardwired.
Yes, I agree with that. I've worked with hundreds of consultants in the HR space. So when I say HR, I mean, employee engagement, recruitment, HR generalist, org design, etc. I would guesstimate that it's something like 40 or 50% of those people who've left the corporate world and go out and launch their own business, that 40, 50% of them would suffer from either self-sabotage or imposter syndrome, things like that. So if I turn to the second sort of question or topic around profit leak and avoiding scope creep and then, building better agreements, a lot of that is either held back or affected by or harmed by that lack of assertiveness or some of those issues. So I've thrown a lot of stuff at you just then, but can you talk a little bit about what is profit leak and avoiding that scope creep and building better agreements? But let's try and tie it in with that percentage of people that would be less assertive or have fears about standing their ground in those regards.
Perfect. So before we talk about profit leaks, scope creep, building agreements, the HR professional who is becoming a consultant, they have to learn how to close a deal. They have to learn how to close a profitable deal. Otherwise, they're working for free, and then they're basically maybe even working less than what they would have earned before because there's a lot of downtime. It's a feast of famine, and when they have work, they got a lot of work, and then they go for a long period where they can't close a deal. Now, that's going to be problematic. So I think one of the skills that an HR consultant who wants to go into consulting have to learn is, how do I negotiate deals? Yeah. How do I close these deals? And how can I close them so they're profitable for them, right? And once they do that, I think in terms of skill sets, most of the consultants I coaches, they're really good at improving productivity. They're really good at marketing. They're really good at all these other things that is skill set specific. But these consultants cannot find the projects and the gigs and close them and to move them instead of them going dark. They're ghosting them. They said they were happy. Then later they don't hear from them, or they say, send us a proposal. They send a proposal and nothing happens. And now they're following up till like the last 2 years. They're still following up. I'm exaggerating, but they're following up and nothing happens, right? And so the first thing that a lot of these consultants could benefit from is learning how to negotiate for themselves.
It's a big step to take for some of those people, though, who feel they're smart. They've got great experience in the HR world, but suddenly they don't feel confident enough to push it, or maybe they haven't got the sales pipeline to back it up. So if I lose this deal, I've lost it all. So
it's like a mechanic. A mechanic may not be the business person, but it doesn't mean it's not a skill set they can learn. It's a learnable skill. I say that, but I'm going to just kind of hedge this. And I had this conversation with my mentor, Gary Nessner. And what happened is I said, look, when you were at the FBI as the chief of the crisis negotiation unit, who have you found to be the best negotiators? Or is negotiation a skill that you can teach everyone? And this is what he said. And my experience have been pretty close to it. I don't know that these numbers are going to be exactly it, but he said there's going to be 25% of the people out there they're just naturally good at negotiation. They're naturally good at deals. They're naturally good at influencing people, persuading people to do what they want. And they just grew up in an environment where they had to do it, or they just observed other people and they were good at mimicking these habits and skills. And so they used it to persuade people. Then there's 25% of the people, they don't want to have anything to do with negotiation. They don't want sales. Even if you taught them, they just couldn't do it, or they wouldn't do it no matter what. It's the 50% that are coachable. They want to learn. And if you taught them, they would improve. And those are the ones that we focus on. That's what, Gary's like, these are the groups that we help. These are the people like me. I wasn't good at one time. I'm better than I was before. And I know that there's a lot more to grow and improve. So it's just this middle 50% that I think we can work with.
So what exactly is profit leak for people listening to this? What does it mean?
For me, profit leaks could mean many different things. It could be just being inefficient. It could be you have a group of people working in the company and they're not maximizing their productive time, right? So if someone says, say, the productive time in the day is like 6.5 hours, if you can get 6.5 productive hours of an employee, that's pretty much maximum. You're not going to get 8 hours out of an 8-hour workday, right? So you have to go, what can we achieve in 6.5 hours? And are my team able to achieve that productivity level? And if it's not, you can say that's a first line of, oh, we're having some profit leaks because you're paying out more than what you're bringing in, right? So that's one area. The second area in profit leaks is this salespeople unnecessarily conceding on the price of what they're selling or giving discounts unnecessarily in order to get a deal. So now your profit margin is lower. The next thing in terms of profit leaks is just selling something that doesn't live up to your promise. And as a result, your customer service is doing a lot of work to placate your customer, to offer discounts in future work or giving this free stuff in order to retain that customer. And you put a lot of manpower to solve this one problem, like basically the overpromise and under-delivered. And then other areas of profit leaks is scope creep. This happens to architects a lot, designers, graphic artists, marketing folks in a creative field. They have a project and then the client comes and they make a minor change. Can you just do this little thing? And to the designer and the architect, they're like, well, yeah, I can just stretch that. I can just do that. But what happens, they realize is in order to make that change, it changes everything else. It changes the requirements and the notes, and it goes from the electric plan to the roofing plan and the foundation. And the next minute, they have spent 15, 20 hours on a 5-minute supposedly change from the client. And at that time, they said, well, we didn't bring it up, but now that we have started, it's hard for me to tell them there's going to be more charges. And so they try to eat it And that's another way where you're losing profit, where you're paying your employees more work that you haven't been able to charge for.
Yeah, I see. So I remember working with a finance leader for a turnaround project whereby he said to me, if we just stopped, didn't take on any new accounts, any new business, and just focused on this profit leak stuff, as in making everything a bit more efficient, cutting down the waste, just having things run better, particularly from an HR perspective, and the way the people ran the business, then we could be way more profitable. So that was an aspect from the internal side. And then on the external side of getting better at the stuff you're talking about, so being a better negotiator, having that sort of confidence to negotiate a better agreement, that meant that you could have in more profitable deals and accounts and things like that. And just to attach to that, I run a workshop from time to time on how to get paid and improve your cash flow profitability for consultants. And sometimes just making sure that things are noted down in agreements, such as the deliverables and milestones. They don't have amendments. There's a subsequent amendment stage where you kick into the next payment thing. So no, you don't get that extra 5 minutes alteration stuff. You get the stuff, it's delivered, pay the bill, but now we move on to the next thing, which may be amendments and change and so on. So I guess it's having a combination of that confidence, that assertiveness, and then all the stuff that you would help clients with, as well as some just procedural stuff, agreements, automations and things like that. Combine those, you could really chop down on a lot of that profit leak. Would that be right?
Absolutely. For instance, there's this company, they were making the annual sales of about 60 million.
Nice.
And I asked, how much do you think you guys are giving away in terms of discounts? He said, oh, I know, it's 15%. We've already calculated. What is 15% of 60 million? I mean, I'm going to use my calculator. That is $9 million. They just gave like $9 million away. And so if you can, discounting from, let's say 15% to like 7.5%, you just cut your discount rate by half. You just made a profit of about 4.5 million. Now, 4.5 million, how many new customers does that represent?
Yeah.
So that's profit leaks. I mean, it's like if you don't negotiate each deal well, if the salespeople are not negotiating well, they are losing profits. Another area I forgot to mention is procurement. If you buy products and your pricing is not optimized, meaning that you're paying more than you need to, then you're losing profits as well. A lot of companies, the bottom line is affected by how well they purchase their supplies, their raw materials, the cost of goods. If they can reduce that, that flows straight to the bottom line.
Do you mean seeking discounts below ticket price or sticker price?
Yeah, just negotiating better price on your raw materials or your products, just being able to do that without paying premium, right? Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of factors to that, really. Sometimes there's like, the life cycle of the product, what's going on with the competitive landscape, how strategic is this supplier to you? Do you want them to stay in business if they are not doing well? And sometimes I have been asked by my client to coach their suppliers to run their business better so that they can be a better supplier for my client. So to lower their cost. Like I've been paid by my client actually to help their customers and some of the suppliers to do better business with them. So it's an interesting thing for sure.
For someone listening to this, they're probably saying, well, I wonder if Allan can help me in this situation whereby they've had the sales meetings or sales calls, whatever, and the potential new client says, yeah, let's do it. And they've discussed the pricing. And then the client comes back with, how about 1,000 less or whatever it is,
Well, that happens all the time.
What's your advice to them?
Yeah. The advice depends on the situation. For instance, I'll give you an extreme situation. During the beginning of COVID, when everyone thought the world was coming to an end, I have clients where we have $4 million worth of supplies that they're being shipped to a country in Southeast Asia, and it is now intercepted at the port, and they're not accepting this shipment. They said they are not able to sell it, and therefore we would just have to cancel that contract. Right? They don't want it. Customer doesn't want it anymore. And they said, well, they ordered it. We have a contract. And the customer is like, look, you can sue us. It's the end of the world. We can't sell it. No one goes to the store. We're not even going to take it because we're not going to be able to pay you for it. And then on the other side, they have a supplier saying, the stuff that you wanted, we made it and we shipped it to your customer for you. Where's our money? And so what made it difficult is on a weekly basis, Ben, we will come to an agreement and then we find out new information and we have to go back to our customer and the supplier and renegotiate what we negotiated last week. And we did that sometimes 3 or 4 times in a row because we just didn't know how long the crisis was going to be from one week to the next. When it was locked down, then it was this, and it was like no one goes out. Then it was like everything just got worse. And so in terms of a customer saying, I bought this at this price and I don't want to pay this amount. I'll give you another scenario. I had a client that did some software development for a customer of theirs the previous year, and they came back and they said, we want the second phase done. But this time, we want a 15% discount or else we'll go out to bid. So my client's account manager said, I think we can lower the price and we'll still do well. Should I do that? She was trying to persuade me to say, okay, with her boss as my client. It's like, yeah, go ahead and just give him a discount because it was the easy way. It was $1 million negotiation. So what happened is 15% is 150,000. It's maybe not a lot of money, but in this case, I worked with her for 20 minutes. She made a call, came back, and she said, we got the deal. I didn't have to lower the price, and we have potential new work from the company. There are many different things that we said, but essentially is, you know, the work that we do. You have experienced it. We are not going to be able to lower our price, and you could go out to bid, and you would find someone cheaper than us. What you have to ask yourself is, how much risk are you willing to take by going to a new supplier when we have already shown you we can do a good job? Can you guarantee these guys will build on top of our product and do just as good a job as we do, knowing the code that we developed for you last time? And is that risk worth the 15%? And they said, no, it's not.
So in an HR context, leadership development or something like that, they might say, well, we want to negotiate a good discount. You can do that, go out to bid or something like that. Don't forget that we're already embedded in the organization. The people know us and trust us. So you bring in an external company in. There will be questions asked as to why are we suddenly changing? Why are we mixing things around? Well, we already had a process and flow and people were happy with the process and it was making good positive changes. Does this show disorganization on management's part? Who knows what the arguments might be, but there are ways of explaining that there are risks involved if you make the change. Of course, free will exists. You can go out there and rebid or whatever it may be, but there are risks involved. That's a key message to take, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, it's like, how much risk are you willing to take from having a new company coming in and your team is now going to lose all the rapport and the trust they have put into this company because now they don't know how long this new group is going to last. So should they hold back? Should they hedge? Should they really build that relationship if you're just going to rip it up from underneath them?
You can't really use the word risk or that line for scope creep. So when they come back and say, oh, can we make some adjustments? Can we make some amendments? So any advice there?
Sure. They just need to have the confidence to address it as soon as someone changes the scope. And the easiest way to do it, there's many different ways, but one of the ways is just to give the customer what they want by saying, it seems like you would like to make some changes to the design that we've already agreed on, correct? They'll say yes. And then you say, well, this is the problem. I could make these changes and I'll have to charge you more for it. And your project would take longer than we originally projected it to be. Or you can let us finish what we already planned. And then we can make these additional changes and we'll talk about all those things that you want to add. You make that decision. And they'll say, no, we have to make this change. Then you can go. So because of that, we'll just have to charge you extra for that. Is that going to be okay? It's like, oh, per hour, whatever. So the person just has to feel very comfortable just saying, look, I get it. We agreed on this. You want to make changes. I want to give you the change. In order to give you the change, 2 things are going to happen. Either we make the change after we finish the whole project, and I'll charge you for that, or we charge you right now and start making the changes knowing that your delivery date is going to be pushed out. Are you going to be okay with it? So this is where you're collaborating with them without making unnecessary concessions.
Yeah. So that, and the previous example with the risk element, in both situations, you're giving them the choice, that free will thing, which I guess takes some of the sting out of it, takes some of the pressure or the anger out of what could become a tricky discussion, but that's a great way to do it.
I've seen some people who are very hardwired. They say, no, we already agreed on it. We're not going to do it. And what that does, it just creates resentment on the customer's part.
Yeah.
But when you give them the autonomy to say, I respect your change. You want to change? Of course. This is your home. This is your design. This is your project. You want to change it? I'll change it with you. But just know this, know the ramifications of this change.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you more. It's going to take a little bit longer. Are you okay with it?
That's nice. I like it. Allan, you've shared some great advice and stuff, and I know you've got lots of plans for the future. If people want to keep in touch with you or learn from you in the future or work with you, what should they do next?
There's two ways they can do this. They can go to my website and just read a little bit of my propaganda and send me a note from there. My website is www.88, that's the number 88, and then the owl, the bird owl, OWLS, 88owls.com. Or you can reach me faster on LinkedIn because I'm rather active on LinkedIn. About over 50% of my clients come from LinkedIn. So just go to Allan, ALLAN, and then my last name is Tsang. There's a silent T, so it's T for Tom, S for Sam, ANG.
So if you're listening to this on the go, yeah, we'll have the links to 88owls.com, but also Allan's LinkedIn profile, because that's where we got in touch. Allan writes some great stuff, some thought-provoking, interesting, angles on perspectives on business and life, and
crazy ideas.
So it's excellent. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and advice today, and I've really enjoyed our chat. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks, and see you next time.